Now, as leaders, as a boss or as a business owner or as a manager or whatever it is, it's our job to make sure the people that are there in our environment are happy, fulfilled, doing something that they enjoy doing, well compensated, right? That means we work for them. It is my job to serve the people that I have brought into my world to solve a bigger problem. Welcome back to another installment of the Perspective Podcast. This is my co-host, Mitch Harley. My name is Devin, and today we are talking about saving your business. And before we started recording here, we were talking about having the difficult conversation. And Mitch, you've been recently working with a local business, helping them go through some stuff. And the thing that you just said really, really resonated with me in that, I'm not a conflict person. I don't like having conflict. One of the things that I saw in what you were doing was you found a way to ignore even the idea that there could be a conflict here, because you approached every situation as if there was a win-win outcome. Everybody wins. Everybody that you talked to, everybody that you interacted with, it was all to the same end. And I'd love to get a little bit more about that, process for you. How did that start? How did you start these conversations?
In order to run a business, even on a small level, let's say a home-based business, it's more than one person. Maybe you don't have more than one on payroll, but there's somebody else involved. Nobody, that Gary Vee saying, no one can do it alone. It's really true, because even if you're doing it yourself, you're still relying on somebody for something, and you're still paying somebody, whether it's Amazon to deliver a package or your eBay store, your Shopify, you're relying on somebody. Now, those relationships are super easy because there's an established ground rule. You pay Amazon flat rate fee and they deliver product to customer. It's really black and white, but it's a win-win. Your product goes to the customer that you need and they get paid. That's the win-win. Now, let's scale that up a little bit, where now you have some contractors, subcontractors, employees, however you're running your business. That's up to you. But there still has to be a win-win. So every problem has a solution. Sometimes it's not the ideal solution. Sometimes it's not a solution that you want to stick with for a long time, but it's the immediate need of that solution at that time. There is always a win-win. Always. The problem with not being able to find a win-win is not being willing to allow the other person to benefit. And when you're in a scarcity mindset, what's the first thing when wages come up? If you're in scarcity mindset as a business owner, what do you lean to every time? You don't want to pay them. And it's not that you don't want to pay them out of malicious, but you don't want to pay them too much. You're scared of paying them too much because you need the money. So you're trying to hoard all your money and maximize, the work out of the employee. And there's this weird thing. But if you leave that world and you say, look, this is what I need, and this is what you need. How do we get there? Because I'm not going to devalue what you need. You need to pay your bills at a minimum, and you should be more comfortable than that. And I want to be a source. I want to be the roadmap for that. I want to be the vehicle. I have those same needs too. The business has those same needs. So if we sell a product for $10, I can't give you $10. The business takes priority. The product cost takes priority. After that, I need a certain margin so that I can continue to facilitate a business to pay you.
Right. Because what's the alternative? If the business doesn't earn the money, well, you lose the facility, you lose the management, you lose the product itself or the ability to sell a product. And then what? Everybody loses.
Well, then you take that $10 and say, what's left over? Okay, this is what I have to pay people. And then you look at their needs and you say, okay, is this going to work? And if not, what's the gap? Because that's what I did today. I found the gap. And so when I looked at the gap, I'm like, okay, the gap is too big to fill it with profit to offset that. So I'm not going to do that. Will the market bear if I increase the price of this product the gap plus 10%. Will the market bear it? So we tried it. It could bear it. So the employee is super happy because they got what they needed and they feel looked after. The business gets what it needs. It actually makes more money now. And the owner is looked after. They don't have to worry about them not being able to pay rent because they have to pay their employee. And now their employee is an asset, not a liability. That's how you come to a win-win solution. And people, they may look at it from an outside perspective and be like, oh, that's oversimplified, or that can't be applied to every situation. It can. And I'm doing it on a daily basis. It doesn't situations.
Right. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in or where how you're serving people. Because at the end of the day, that all business is finding a way to provide a solution to somebody who has a problem, whatever that problem is. So using a gym as an example, somebody's overweight or not fit or not healthy or whatever, and they want that. So, how do we offer a product to that demographic of people that accomplishes all of those goals and remains affordable, but also supports the business and all of the members inside of the business? And this is, the overarching proverbial question is what do we charge? How do we price something? How do we make sure that every piece of our puzzle is satisfied and has what they need in order to make sure we can continue to operate the way that we need to operate? But not just that. How can we make room for growth in the future? Mm-hmm. Because there's a whole other aspect here. It's like, okay, cool. We got to an operational plateau where all the, the employees, the staff, the contractors, whoever, they're getting what they need. The clients, they're getting what they need. The business has what it needs so that the business owner can continue to manage this whole organization as it's going. But if there's not a little reserve there for you to continue to grow the business, then that's it. You flatlined. This is where you're going to be indefinitely. And we kind of talked about this in terms of, you and I in our businesses is, at first when you start a business, I think the whole process is all about discovering what can be systemized, what elements of your service exist or your solution, and how can you replace yourself in that machine. If you're playing all the roles, all of the cogs and gears that make this machine go, you're going to wear yourself out. You're basically creating a job for yourself, which isn't I don't think the goal for most people who go to start a business. We're looking for independence and freedom and opportunity to be able to do other things. I don't know about you, but I'm super ADD. So I'll do something, get really good at it, and then I'm bored of it and I don't want to do that thing anymore. I'm like, okay, cool. I got this down. Like, what's next? What's the next challenge that I got to face? So creating that opportunity for growth inside of all of that is what lends to your ability to continue to go do the other things that you're meant to do. So when you're talking to a business owner, how do you approach that?
So one of the things too, just going back really quick to the finding a solution, finding a win-win. In order to find a win-win, one of the factors to even make it possible is you need the other party to be agreeable. And I don't mean settling. I mean, they have to be in the same mindset where they're looking for a win-win. Have they bought into the business mentally, emotionally? Are they invested in making this thing work? I'm not talking about a bank account. I mean, when they show up to work, do they want the business to succeed?
Okay, so when you're having a conversation with somebody like who seems to be a little bit more difficult, where do you draw the line then between this guy's enrolled, he's on board, or she, whatever, or it's time to cut that person loose? Like, we all know the D-bag sales guy. He might get 60% conversion rates, and he's bringing in the big bucks, but he makes everybody else in the establishment feel like shit just for being there.
Yeah.
What do you do in that situation?
So a couple things you identify. One of them is, what are your needs at this time in your business? What are your needs? Are they revenue? Then don't cut the guy that's making the most revenue. Not yet. You need them. You need the revenue. Okay. Second of all, what else is important? What's needed in the business? So you identify all those factors, and then you go meet with everybody, and not at once. You meet them individually. And where I find having a third party really valuable in this is they can have conversations without sentiment.
Right.
There's huge value in that. But you approach these guys or girls and you say, okay, here's the goals for the business. Here's our current situation. Here's what we're looking to strategize. What's your feedback? What's your thoughts? And their response to that is going to tell you a lot, whether they're willing to buy in and kind of bootstrap, or whether they don't. They just want to do what they're doing every day and they just want to collect money. It's at that point that you say, okay, so the guy that is bringing lots of revenue in, but there's just, that it's probably not going to last. You just don't include him. You let him do his thing. You're benefiting from it. Don't waste your time on making sure there's a win-win, because if he leaves, he leaves. He's kind of a lost cause. Just milk it. And it sounds really brutal and unpersonable, but there are those people that just don't want to buy in. They're going to do their job well, and that's it. And if you fail, they're just going to go off to the next job. But there are people that say, what can I do? I don't want to go somewhere else. I want to stay here. And if that means that I have to augment my role for a few weeks or a month, I'll do that. Or can we make some adjustments where, I don't feel it. I don't have the money to afford not to get paid for 2 months. But what can we do where I still make my income, but I get to stay? Those are the people that you sit down and you create those win-wins for, because that's a long-term employee. That's what Kobe called that A player.
Right.
So you have to identify who those are.
Yeah, it becomes a matter of, looking for, being on the search for people willing to collaborate, and then doubling down and investing in those people until it reaches, I guess, a crossover threshold where it's like, okay, well, now the D-bag that's causing all of the rifts in the company, we don't really need that person around. And now it's time for us to let that person go because he's not conducive to the culture that we're trying to create. And so I would almost argue it's like, looking for that, that micro group of people who are willing to invest to offset what that guy was contributing. Because I look at it in terms of like, okay, I show up to work and I'm regular. Like I know myself, maybe I'm a 30-40% closer on good days when I'm feeling empowered, but most days I'm feeling like shit because I'm being abused in the workplace or whatever, just there's emotional strain or something like that. And so, I'm only, pulling 20% at best on my good days. Where if that guy was gone and the culture was positive and I felt safe in my work environment, I could be, doing better 30-40%. And if you had 3 or 4 people that were in that state of mind, I would argue that that group of people would almost offset the loss of this guy who was creating a toxic environment. And so the sooner you can get rid of that person, the better. Yeah. But it does, like you said, it really requires you to go and do that deep dive into the people that are on the team and looking into, well, who here is willing to invest? And if you are willing to invest and be a team player and help cultivate a positive culture and work environment, then we need to double down on you. And we're willing to invest in you. We're willing to hear you out. And I think that's another thing is like, employees, they don't necessarily just want a job and, a bonus or a basket every 2 months or whatever it is. Like a lot of people that I've talked to or encountered, like as long as you got your living wage covered and then a little bit of extra so that you can enjoy your life, most people are happy with, being a contributing member. But I really do subscribe to the belief that it's when I'm being recognized for the work that I'm doing, when I'm being offered the opportunity to learn and grow and do better, when I'm being heard and valued as a member of a team, I am 10 times more likely to participate. And I don't really care what the wage is, as long as I'm happy and I know that I'm doing something that's satisfying. I think about the polls that have gone around.
Not everyone likes that though.
Well, that's an arguable thing, right? Like there's polls that go around and say, would you rather work at a job that is shitty all the time and make $1 million a year, or would you rather be incredibly happy and fulfilled and only make $100,000 a year? And it's surprising how many people actually choose the $100,000 a year to be happy. Because $100,000 a year is still really attractive. Like you can still get by on that. You're by no means rich, but you can get by and live a healthy, happy life.
Billy Bean and Moneyball turned down $12.5 million to be happy.
Like, Dave Chappelle is one of the biggest on records, walked away from a $40 million deal because he was like, I felt like I was selling my soul.
Yeah.
I had no more control. We were doing things that were outside of my beliefs and value system. And this is where I had to say no. He walked away from it for a decade. Mind you, when he came back, Netflix paid him two sets of $20 million. So he ended up getting it back on karma alone. But the choice to be happy.
It's true. And then just going back to, that person that, maybe he's a high revenue guy, but, he's kind of an idiot. What I've experienced lately too is there is a chance that they will change. Sometimes those people are the way they are because they've been trained previously that that's how you do your job. That's how you interact with your staff or your colleagues. And when they're shown that is not how we do it, or if you want to be more productive, or hey, if you want more leads, or if you want this, you got to make these adjustments. Sometimes they actually make the adjustments and they become a really good team player. Now, sometimes they don't. And you realize it's like, okay, you know what? Is it worth sticking around? Is it worth a couple of weeks? Should we milk it? Should we not? And those are discussions you have to have. And those are realistic expectations. I'm not saying keep somebody on just because they're high revenue if they're causing more problems than they're bringing solutions.
Right.
But when you deal with multiple personalities within an office or a structure or environment or whatever your business is, there has to be some sort of accommodating. And so one of the things that I do too is it's a very simple one. It's free. I get everyone in the office to do the Myers-Briggs. And what I love about the Myers-Briggs is, yes, there's other ones out there. There's lots of opinions on it, but it gives a really good overview of each person's strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, where they receive validation from, how they perform at their best, when they feel their best. And when you recognize those simplistic things about people's traits, you actually work better together. You recognize, hey, this person's shutting down because emotionally they checked out and they need this. They need what validates them? Oh, they need words. What's their love language? They need words of affirmation. Hey, if the team gets together for 5 minutes and tells that person you're doing an awesome job, for the rest of the afternoon, we got them back to where we like them. Or maybe he doesn't like that. Maybe he needs private recognition. Okay, pull him in. Boss pulls him in, says, hey, man, I really appreciate what you've been doing. Here's some numbers. Look at what's going on. This is amazing. All of a sudden, that person's back up to cloud 9. But if you don't recognize that and you're just going to think everyone thinks like you, and you think that everyone knows they're doing good because the revenue is high. Some people don't care. Some people don't care. And it's not that they don't care about you. It's not they don't care about your business. It's literally that's how they process information. Some people need an employee of the month sticker. Some people will leave if they get one because they can't handle public recognition. And if you don't take the time to invest in learning each person's traits, you're not going to get the most out of them, and they're not going to be the most fulfilled. So in that meeting that you have one-on-one, understanding their needs, that's part of it. It's not just their financial needs. What do you need to be emotionally fulfilled every day that you come here? And what can we do? What can we implement that would accommodate that? Systems, you can implement the best sales strategy, the best selling systems, the best add-on sales, everything. You can have it rocking. But if people don't buy into it, if your employees are not bought into it, you're going to be real hard pressed to make those sales and to facilitate the services that you do sell.
And you know what?
It's always important to put the cart before the horse here. Or not, no, I mean the other way around. You don't put the cart before the horse. You put the horse before the cart. That's the
make sure the horse is where it belongs in the train of things that are happening.
Not in the field. Let me get this straight. Hold on.
I love the way that Gary Vee speaks to this one. I know that we talk about him a lot, but he really is quite insightful when it comes to this kind of thing, because I believe that he is pioneering a new way of thinking in terms of the way we manage each other, the way, like the meme that goes around. I see this all the time, and it's so frustrating for me not to be able to voice an opinion. I just don't really, like getting in online arguments with people who don't give a shit about what the outcome is here.
Yeah.
But the meme is like, oh, where did we all get indoctrinated into this idea that we must work 40 hours, spend 33% of our lives in our jobs and blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's just rewind a little bit. Who's going to go and get the food for you and put it on a shelf in a grocery store for you to have? Who's going to build the house and shelter for you to live in? Ask yourself these questions. What are you going to go out into the woods and chop a bunch of trees down yourself to build your house? Like, we're not even talking about electricity and plumbing and all this other shit. There are hundreds of thousands of individuals out there right now who are responsible for making sure that your home has a gas pipeline into it so that your furnace can run.
Yeah.
And if those people stop doing that stuff, you don't get it. So the idea of being entitled to these things as if they exist on their own is completely foolish. That being said, I would assert that it's our jobs individually to explore the world and find the things, the tasks, the jobs that we enjoy spending our time doing. My brother, he's a hands-on guy. He likes building shit. He likes working with his hands and doing tangible things, and that fulfills him. Me, on the other hand, hate it. Absolutely hate it. I want nothing to do with it. I'd much rather sit in a room by myself and compose a song so that when my brother's done work, I can entertain him. So there's stuff I got to do to make sure that that's even possible, because if I'm not a good entertainer, then he's not going to want that. So what's the purpose? What are we here for? You're not just going to magically get all this shit. You got to do something. You have to contribute in some way. Now, as leaders, as a boss or as a business owner or as a manager or whatever it is, it's our job to make sure the people that are there in our environment are happy, fulfilled, doing something that they enjoy doing, well compensated, right? That means we work for them. It is my job to serve the people that I have brought into my world to solve a bigger problem. So when I do marketing, I want to make sure I get good graphic design. I want to make sure I got good copywriting. I want to make sure I got amazing video production. There's all these little elements. Now, do I like sitting in front of the computer and editing videos for 14 hours? No, not really. But I know people who absolutely love it. So it's my job to find those people and give them an opportunity to fulfill their passion. But this also lends to another thing. My dream is to build a business where I can earn an income to manage a group of people, where I get to, deploy my creative skills and strategy and psychology, social behavior, all my thinking. So I want that environment. So I have to create opportunities for people to be in that environment. So I have to make sure that they're happy. I have to make sure that they're healthy. I have to make sure that they got a roof over their head. I got to make sure that their bills can be paid. Right. And that means me finding those people. So for my passion, I'm at 110%. Some days maybe I'm at a 90 because I'm tired or I'm overworked or whatever. I overextended, but I'm really, really, really high up. So how do I expect anybody else to come into my business and be at 100% if I'm not helping them fulfill their passion at the bare minimum?
I think the idea that people can't be happy with a 9 to 5, 40-hour a week job is foolish. There are plenty of people that don't want anything other than that. And it's not because they're naive, and it's not because they don't have aspirations. It's literally because they're being fulfilled and their needs are fulfilled and their finances are looked after. There is that group of people. So to say, who thinks that working 40 hours is normal? It's like, well, don't downplay what other people have found as happiness. Now, that being said, I think where that stems from is there is a lot of 8 to 5 jobs that are crap. And they're not crap because the job itself is crappy. They're crap because they're crappy managers. They have crappy managers. They have people that are not good bosses. They have people that don't create good work environments, because like we've talked about before, work environments go a long way, and people will produce very highly with good work environments. Recently I did a deep dive because I found this common problem of just poor management in many industries on many levels, and just crappy managers. And I was like, how can we address this problem if we don't know where it comes from? So I'm going to throw this at you, and you can tell me I'm wrong or right. When we're young and we get out of school, where do we most likely go to? I would say like the fast food industry, small retail, big box stores, kind of the entry level workforce. Even if we're going to school for something else, but that's kind of our entry level to the workforce. It's usually our work experience. So you take a fast food or a small retail like you'd see in the mall. A lot of young people working there. They're managed. Okay, so now the store is saying, hey, we need a manager. We should have like a shift supervisor or something, and we'll give someone like $1 an hour raise. But who do we got that's willing, and that we could put in that position? And so the recommendations go through, and all of a sudden it's like, well, this person here, he shows up every single shift. He's super reliable. I think he's a good key holder. Does showing up on time every day qualify you to be a manager over other people? And my answer is no. Yes, reliability is a good quality, but literally they're taking that person and saying, Kate, you're a manager now because you've been super reliable and we really like you and you're a good person. Cool. So here's a team, and here's what we need to achieve. Cool. See you later. And that's literally their training. And so now you've got these, 19, 20-year-old individuals overseeing a staff that's pretty resentful. Let's be real about it. Pretty resentful, not excited about their jobs. And they're telling them, no, you have to do this. Where are those stock? Well, how come that's not stuff? Because they're trying to impress corporate. And they're saying, oh, this has to be done this way. Now they become task managers and they become slave drivers and nobody wants them. And then they realize, hey, I can make more money somewhere else. So they leave. Now you have this terribly trained manager leave to another business. Now they go to this other business and the resume says, wow, he grew in this company. He started on the floor and then he's a manager.
Yeah.
Wow, let's hire this manager. So he comes into this new business on a bigger level now. And that cycle keeps continuing. So this entry level job industry over here is birthing bad managers. The middle industries of size business are inflating them. And now you've got bigger level management that never got told along the way that what they're doing is wrong or inefficient. And so everyone's like, wow, that guy's such a jerk. How about we reverse engineer to where that started? And I can guarantee we can find it. So at what point do we break the cycle? And the number one thing is to show people that you don't have to be a jerk to be a manager, to get things done efficiently. And when you start teaching that on the more entry level workforce, it will start building better managers over the next 5-10 years. You will see it. You will see the work culture change, because what's happening now is managers that have been task-oriented slave drivers for the past however many years are now realizing, hey, it's not becoming effective. I don't know what to do. How do I not do that? Everyone's leaving. I can't retain people. And what do we have now? We have the Great Resignation. Why? Because no one wants to work for these guys anymore. So how do we break the cycle? And that's really that. I'm like, if we don't figure out the problem or where it's coming from, we're not going to have a solution. We're just going to Band-Aid fix. And to me, that's where the problem starts, is by these entry-level management positions, shift supervisors, key holders, and not giving them any guidance or discipline. We're not giving them any structure on how to properly run a team. And I'm not saying there are programs out there and there are businesses out there that do that. But as a whole, it is highly lacking in the workforce. And we're seeing the results of it right now.
It's a compounding effect, right? You start off, say, I think about it into like, I'm such a super, really, really basic guy when it comes to this kind of thing, that if you simplify this and don't make it overly complex, because we can make it super complex if we want to. But the truth of the matter is okay, let's just go back to the basic function of, we got to do shit to survive. Okay. So I got to wake up this 8 to 5, 40-hour work week bullshit, throw it out the window here and just follow me on this thinking. It used to be that when the sun rose, we had to wake up and go do shit. You had to go tend to the animals. You had to go tend to the crops. You had to go work on the machinery to make sure that your jobs could be done. You had to go build stuff. You had to, churn butter and shit. Like there was tasks that you had to do. Some people had to like make clothes. Like there are things that needed to be done. And that happened until the sun went down and there was no more light. And then you fall asleep because you're so exhausted from making sure everything happened. Right. So we have systems and structures in place. Now, the way that it used to work, or, typically in this kind of scenario is like, well, what is my 5-year-old good at? He could probably go in the chicken coop and gently take out the eggs and put them into a carton and bring them into the storage. I think that's something a 5-year-old can handle. Okay, cool. 5-year-old's got that handled. Can the 5-year-old be running a baler? Definitely not. He'd be dead, right? So who has that skill? Okay, so let's put that person in charge of that thing. Oh, you want to learn that thing? Okay, you got to go learn from the guy that knows how to do that thing. So the problem that you're pointing at is that because we have developed a much more complex systems in the way that we interact collectively as a society, there are many, many, many jobs. I remember hearing, we asked my girlfriend's 12-year-old, he was 12 at the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, I don't know all the jobs. So how am I supposed to know what I want to be when I grow up? That's such a profound thing to say for such a young person, but it's so clearly, obviously true. So when I started my first job, did I want to be a gas jockey? Not really, but I didn't really care because I was making, $4.95 an hour. And to me, getting an extra $200 at the end of 2 weeks was like, sweet, I can go buy stuff with this. I can buy that new pair of shoes that I always wanted that my parents won't buy me because we were broke. I can go buy that binder that I wanted to take to school because my parents couldn't afford the 5-star when they had to get the 99-cent one from Walmart. You know what I'm saying? So I was afforded things that I wasn't normally afforded, but also I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So how can I, as quick as possible, advance to the next thing? So I kept looking to people above me, and the people above me, they don't want me taking their job. So obviously they're not going to give me any more information than I absolutely bare minimum need. So we've accidentally created a hierarchy in the way that we, acquire information and knowledge. So the example that you use, I'm folding clothes at Abercrombie and Fitch and putting them back on a shelf, but I've been there longer than anybody else is because I really want to keep buying shit. And so I'm committed to this. I got a good, solid work ethic. I show up. All of a sudden they give me the keys. So what do? I continue to show up and open the store. Maybe I take on some extra stuff. But nowhere along the line is there any type of formal education for me to do the task, right? The person that I'm being managed by is the closest thing that I have to a form of education. So these are the tasks that need to be done in the store. If I get a real grump as my teacher, that's what I'm modeling. So now I'm modeling somebody who is an a-hole everywhere he goes. And now I do that because that's the only thing that I know. Versus had we had alternative opportunities or education or different ways of us acquiring this information, perhaps we would do a little bit better in these situations. And so I would argue this is why it's so important for any business that employs any person to seek out some kind of business coach, some kind of management coach, bring those. It's so worth the investment, as many businesses have already discovered, to bring somebody in as a third party to take a look at all of the systems and structures that are in place, to analyze the level of education that these people have, and then to find and assess where the leaks are on the boat, and then come up with the most efficient and affordable way to plug those leaks. Because once you do that and the boat can sail properly, there is no land that is not conquerable. There is no place that business can't go, provided you have the right systems and structures in place. So and I always point back at this, the way that our education system has been developed, I think it's just been an oversight, right? I don't think there's any one specific person to blame. I think there's a lot of people like, you should learn this and you should learn this and you should learn, but like, I've never applied any history in my entire life. I've never applied any advanced algebra in my entire life, for the exception of that one time me and my brother tried to make a ghetto hot tub thing that we could package and sell. So we had to figure out how to heat water up in a copper coil on a barbecue, how many cubic inches is flowing through at what rate from this pump. And it was just like a dumb drunk thing that we did till 4 o'clock in the morning. We were just Googling formulas to figure it out, because guess what? You have all the power of education in your hand right now. If there's something you want, you can get it right now. But the thing is also having too much information makes it really, really hard to discern what is important information. That's why you need a third party to come in and figure that out for you.
You also accommodate for sentiment, right? If it's your business, you have a ton of sentiment, and so you get very defensive about things that aren't working because you implemented them. And
trying to be right instead of find right.
Yeah. And so that's where that third party is actually really helpful, because there's no sentiment. Their job is to make you successful, and they're going to tell you the black and white hard truths that you know, but you will never tell yourself. And especially if you have to work with somebody and those become exposed, you will hold back from making those needed adjustments and benefiting everyone around you, because it in your own projection, it makes you look bad. So those are the things that a coach can do. And we've actually been very successful at working with individuals to overcome that. It's funny you talk about the school system. So originally today, when we were looking at, what was going to be our topic, one of the things I wanted to touch on is very closely related to that. And it's metrics, how we measure metrics. And I think this is a great opportunity and kind of topic to kind of segue into this for a few minutes. So personal development, that's one of the things I focus on, is where are we at with a personal development level with each individual on the team, because it's going to take all of them to have some self-awareness, have awareness about others around them in order for things to really take off. You can implement something by telling people what to do, or you can implement by having everyone buy in and have it really successful. But one of the things you have to identify is, how do people measure their choices and themselves? Are they using internal metrics or using external metrics? And going back to the poor managers that are using metrics they've learned along the way, their entire career and day-to-day work structure, most of it is based on external metrics. They're using metrics and judgments of others, whether present or not, to make their decisions. They're not based on their own principles and values. When we create an internal metric, we use factors from external metrics, but we shouldn't use the complete. So we build our own with all the pieces that are out there, and we come with what aligns with our goals, how we want to be perceived, our values, principles, whether that be spiritual or whether that's how we were raised, whatever those are, that's what creates an internal metric. So here's a really quick example. You send your kids outside, you tell your kids, put a long sleeve shirt on. And they're like, no. It's like, put a long sleeve shirt on. It's a little cold outside. No. So they go outside with a t-shirt. And as a parent, that they're probably going to be back in like 10 minutes because they got cold. They're going to put a shirt on. Is that bad parenting? It's up to every individual to decide if that's how they want to do it. For me, I view it as good parenting, because I'm not going to let my kids freeze to death at -40. I'm not going to let that happen. But if it's bearable, I'm going to be like, I'm going to teach them that when I tell them to put a long sleeve shirt on, it benefits them. And they're going to
get a track record first.
Yeah, exactly. So, because eventually when I give them advice on relationships, I hope that going back to, he was right about the shirt, maybe he'll be right about this. But what some people do is they don't let their kid outside not because they're overly concerned. They know their kid's not going to get sick for that 10 minutes. But they're like, what are the neighbors going to think? What are the neighbors going to think? Is that an internal metric or an external metric?
It's actually borderline narcissistic tendencies is what that is.
But it's so common.
Yeah.
What are the neighbors going to think? Okay, let's go worst case scenario. Neighbors think you're a bad parent. You know how long neighbors last? Most people in North America are in their house for 7 years. That's the statistical average. So that means that in 7 years, and that neighbor moves, now your metric left. How are you going to make decisions Your neighbor left. Oh, guess what? Somebody else moves into that house. And now all you do is think about that neighbor's metrics. Maybe they're a little bit more loose when it comes to being strict with their kids. Oh, okay. So now the neighbor's not going to care. So you change your parenting style based on what? On an external metric. So where does this come from? Honestly, it comes from our school system. And this isn't a harp on the school system, but from a young age, you walk into school and you are told, take off your shoes and put your inside shoes on. Okay, well, right away, they're being shown an external metric. I'm not saying that's a wrong decision, but it's an external metric. It's training them to make that decision based off what somebody else's perceived way of thinking is. Whereas if you walked in and say, guys, do you want to spend the day in a clean environment today? And everyone's like, yeah, I do. Cool. In order to do that, you got to take your shoes off. Well, guess what? You're teaching them to create an internal metric based on the factor of wanting to be in a clean environment. But by telling them, take off your shoes or you're going to get in trouble, that's forcing them to use an external metric every time they make that decision. And that just compounds all the way in. Everyone find their desk. You're not allowed out of your desk or you'll get in trouble. How many times in school do we do something so that we don't get in trouble? It has nothing to do with a moral compass. It has nothing to do with factors to achieve a common goal. It's all about listening and being obedient.
Right.
And so just how we teach our children, now you take that into the workforce. Now they've been trained for 12 years about learning other people's perspective or metrics. And then they go into the workforce. Well, what are you told? Well, you have to do this task or your boss will get mad. Okay, well, once again, it's not an internal metric. So when people don't use internal metrics to make decisions or to move forward or to make choices, that's when you don't get buy-in. But when you teach someone to use an internal metric, even when it's not their original idea, you will actually get them to buy in and you will get a higher performing output from that individual. And it's not about being selfish or manipulative. This is personal development. And people and businesses that don't take the time to implement that and to invest in their employees because they view them as liabilities, not assets, those will be, if they are sustainable businesses, they will be people mills. They will spend more money onboarding, hiring, and firing because it's the most expensive thing a business can do than they will if they would just take the time and properly develop people and have no turnover. Turnover kills businesses.
So the idea that you're pointing at actually, and I love that you took the personal development route, because I think that that's a key factor to all of this. Let's use the kid going out in the cold as an example here. My job as a parent is to make sure that my child is happy, healthy, and safe. Right? I think those are the three most agreeable metrics that we can. I'm sure there are many, many others, but happy, healthy, safe.
They fall into that category.
Let's make sure that we can do those things. So one of the things that is important is that when my son leaves my house at whatever age, whether that's 18 or 28, doesn't make a difference to me, is he prepared to deal with the world that he's going to go into? I'll say that again. Is he prepared for the world he is going to go into? That means not the world that I hope to project of this ideology of the way the world works in my head. No, the real world. The real world's tough. There's nobody is going to parent me. After I turn 18, I moved out on my own. There was nobody. Like, I had to wake myself up. I had to come home and make my own supper. I had to do my own laundry. Like, I had to do shit. Not to mention that when you get out in the workforce, it's a dog eat dog world. Nobody gives a shit, right? You got to do your own things. You got to work hard for the things that you want in life. So I have to prepare my son for that. So let's use this example again about going out in the cold. If I don't create the opportunity for my son to learn the lesson on his own, what I am doing alternatively is giving him the sense that he can't make his own decisions and that he must follow direction. And if he must follow direction, how is he going to give a shit about something? How is he going to care about doing the thing? He just has to care about getting the task done. So if I tell him over and over and over again, no, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this, until I break his will into the ground and he finally puts on a jacket when he goes outside, what he's learned there is that he must comply. Do as you're told. Now, is that a good way to operate in the world? do as you're told. Let's say he goes out and his friends are all hanging out and they're all doing some illicit drug. Do as you're told. Hey, you have to do this. Now, what is he doing? He's putting himself in harm's way.
I'm all about
because
structure.
He's not thinking for himself.
Yeah, I'm all about proper education. I'm all about structure. I think having boundaries is healthy, and I think having parameters is healthy. But having that task, you have to do this or you will get in trouble. That's not allowing healthy learning within boundaries, because there's the other extreme where kids are allowed to do whatever they want and the parents have really no involvement other than providing a house for them. That's not healthy either. And you can say, well, that's allowing them to have an internal metric. It's like, no. It's just allowing them to have an external metric for somebody that you don't even know.
That's the pendulum swing completely the other side of it. That's being lazy and not being an active parent. Now, what I find to be a happy balance of what has worked and served so far for myself and my son is creating, like I said before, creating the environment for him to learn the lesson on his own.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's the options. You can go outside right now, but it's cold. You're going to get cold. Then you're going to have to come back inside and you're going to have to warm up, which means you're not going to be able to have fun and play. You're going to be here warming up. And then you're going to end up doing what I told you to do anyways, because in this specific situation, wearing a jacket in the cold is the best choice to make. But I'm going to let you figure that out on your own. And so they go out, they figure out 5 minutes in, oh shit, it's cold. They come back inside to go, damn, dad was right. So the next time I say, hey, listen, this is the situation. If you're going to go to a party, there's going to be drugs, there's going to be alcohol, there are going to be people who aren't in their right mind and they're going to be trying to fight, or maybe there's a girl there who is a little bit promiscuous and you could, partake in that and get her pregnant, or there's a ton of different problems that exist in the real world. So here are the things, here are the choices that I believe are going to lead to the most positive outcome for you. Don't drink, don't do drugs, don't engage in any, violence. And if there's a girl there that you fancy, use protection and be safe. And my input is going to have so much more weight in that situation because of my track record of being right so many times.
And also going back to that original statement, when you're explaining to them to put on a shirt or put a long sleeve shirt on, when you say that, are you giving them a goal that, do you want to be warm outside? Because and I'm guilty of this. So let's be real about when we were kids. Why did we not wear a jacket to school? Because we wanted to be cool. Cool kids didn't wear jackets. We wore t-shirts because we were tough.
Right.
So once again, that's an external metric at a young age. So when
I
you
still don't wear jackets to be told, like I go from my house to my car. This is it. It's -40 out. I don't give a shit.
I don't wear jackets either. But anyway, it's not because I care about what anyone else thinks.
No.
However, if your kids go outside and you're like, okay, fine. If you go outside without a long sleeve shirt, the neighbors are going to think that I'm a bad parent. You're teaching them to use an external metric.
That's
not to think for themselves and to problem solve and to benefit themselves. It's okay.
Or don't do that because you're going to make daddy mad.
Right. Because that's an external metric.
That's not good either. Making daddy mad. They're supposed to care about making you mad.
Mm-hmm. They should care about making you happy.
Right.
And that's what an internal metric will do.
They should be concerned first with their own well-being. This is the airplane mask scenario here. Put your own mask on, because if you don't, you risk dying before you can have a chance to save or help anybody else. So make sure you're good, and then you can take care of other things. So the same thing is like when you go out in the real world, son or daughter, make sure you know how to take care of yourself. And then when you know how to take care of yourself, you're going to be able to have an impact and help other people, which is the most fulfilling thing as a human being, is to be able to serve others. To act in service of others is the most fulfilling part. So how do we take all of this concept now and we bring it into the world of management?
Yeah.
What's the crossover here?
Yeah. So when it comes to management, so first of all, let's take a second and just talk about owners. So you own a business, because a lot of what we speak to is that entrepreneur business world. Are you using external metrics to make decisions? Are you trying to impress your friends? Are you trying to impress somebody? What is your purpose? So most entrepreneurs, I feel, have an internal metric. That's why they start their business. Because if you're trying to impress people, by like having a big house and fancy cars, starting a business as an entrepreneur is probably not the way you're going to do that. Let's just lay that out on the floor. So you have that, but are you teaching people in your realm, in the circle of employment, to do the same thing, or are they just trying to appease you? Because that can kind of feel pretty good, but at the same time, is it getting you to your goal? Is it in alignment with where you want to be? Not everyone wants a multi-million-dollar company. Some people want to maintain a business that has 5, 10, 15, 20 employees. Whatever your goal is, it doesn't matter. You have 2 employees. Do you work with them to make sure that they are fulfilled, that they are getting what they need, and that they're producing? Because you also need a return on investment, right? You need value out of those employees as an owner. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just charity, and we all know how much we make off charity. So though, when it comes to a management perspective, it's the same principle. Is your team being fulfilled? They know what the tasks are. Like when I go into a business, I don't have to tell them that we have to make revenue. Like they know that. I don't have to tell them that we have to sell more to make more revenue. I don't have to tell them that we have to change the ratio of costs and revenue and profit in order to maintain higher margins to reinvest. I don't have to tell them that. But what I do have to say is, how do we fulfill your needs? And what do we have to develop in you so that we can achieve that together?
You're creating the opportunity for them to learn how to operate inside of that space in a way that serves themselves and serves everybody else.
Managers have to learn that. Yeah. And if you want to manage a team successfully and a team that stands behind you, I worked for a guy that was like, he ran the team like a gang, like a motorcycle gang. And it was like, man, I can't even explain how accurate that is, but that's what he did. And he had it set up. He had his right-hand man lieutenant. He had his, buddy over here that was kind of a dud, but he needed him, and he would come out and bark orders. And if he didn't, there was consequences. And then it's like you get this pep talk about ride or die, it's just like on and on. But at the end of the day, you're forcing people your metric. You're not allowing them to think outside of your thoughts, and you're not creating a healthy environment. And it was the lowest producing team out there. The only reason that team succeeded is because he did it all himself, because everyone else was inept. But if you take that and turn it around and say, I'm not going to put this all on myself, whether you're an owner or manager, I'm going to make sure that everyone is fulfilled, because if I do that first, they will reinvest in me and my team will succeed. And I will actually be able to weed out who needs to be here and who doesn't fit and who should probably go find somewhere else. And that's how you find your key players. And so as management, it's not about getting the job done. People know their job. They know how to get the job done, because if you've trained them when they came on, you shouldn't have to keep teaching them the same thing over and over again. That's a red flag as a manager. So there's so many things that management could take a huge load off their back if they would just interact differently with their team. And I know that there's managers that are going to listen to this and they're going to be so angry, and they're going to be like, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't understand my job. He doesn't understand my team. Doesn't understand my industry. You know what? I challenge you. You have my contact info.
Yeah.
I can prove it.
People are people. No matter where you go, people are people. We all operate on the same basic fundamental principles. We all do, whether or not we like to admit to it.
And there are duds.
Does it work? Like, here's the thing, right? You just have to ask yourself, does ruling with an iron fist get some result? Sure. I'm not going to argue with that. Yeah. I'm not going to stand here and say that if you don't get your job done, you're fired. And I got a kid at home and I'm barely making ends meet right now as it is. And if I lose my job and I can't make my child payments and all this other, yeah, sure. You can scare the shit out of me and that might motivate me a little bit. But
for a period of time.
Right. It's a very, very limited fuse before that all blows up in your face. And what does that turn into? It turns into churn rate of employees. The age-old adage, people don't quit the job, they quit the management. Right. So does it work? Sure. It might yield some level of result, but is it the most effective? Is it the most efficient? And is there a better way? Could there be a better way to operate inside of a team that produces better results, that is more efficient, that is a little bit happier or healthier or whatever else, especially given that the state of affairs with mental health in our society and collectively as men. There's oh God, it's so tragic. There's this video going around right now. I don't know if you've seen it on TikTok. This young lady, she asked the question, hey guys, men out there in the world, when we're going through stuff, we call up, we have our like best friend, we call our best friend and we can chat about it and blah, blah, blah. And we always get it. And then she asks the question, who do you call when you have a problem? And I'm not even joking when I say this, hundreds of thousands of men have taken that video and added their 2 cents to it, stitched, an extra 2 or 3 seconds to the back of it. And it is exactly the same message. Every single man is saying, I'm a man. Who do I turn to? Nobody. I deal with it myself. Yeah. And what a tragic state of affairs. And why is that the case? Why does that exist? Why is it toxic for men to talk to other men about the situation or the issues or whatever? And I get it. There's a status thing. I can break this down to you in the way that
it's an external
will
metric.
Really make sense. We're measuring our status based on how much bullshit we can handle. And the guys that can handle the most bullshit, they get the most money. They get the highest paying jobs. They get the prettiest women. They get the fastest cars. They get whatever. But that's actually not the reality.
No.
It's not better to cry in a Ferrari. Crying's crying. I don't care where you're doing it. It sucks. It hurts. It's painful. Doesn't matter what car you're in. Doesn't matter where you are. It's painful. And
but that's using an external metric.
And if we could open up that conversation for people to have, like, okay, what we're doing isn't working. Beating each other up and ruling with an iron fist isn't working. Maybe it's yielded results this far, but it's there is an opportunity and there is a window for an evolution, for things to change, for us to get better at this. And it starts with that understanding of, are you creating opportunities for people to learn, or are you just dictating to them what they should or shouldn't be doing? And if you have an environment where your staff is always late or not showing up or not getting the job done, or they're half-assing stuff, or they're hiding things or whatever else, that's an indication that your management is poor. Yeah. And I'm not saying go out and fire all the managers. I'm saying let's start there and let's help them understand what else is out there. What other opportunities could there be for them? And that starts with them doing that, self-observation, radical self-awareness, radical accountability. I'm the one who's doing this. This is my responsibility. I'm the one who has to take care of it. What can I do to serve the rest of the team?
Yeah. No, I agree.
I think that's a great place to leave that one. Yeah. You got anything else to add?
No, I think I'm good. Otherwise, I'll just go on in another episode.
We'll save that one for the next episode.
Yeah, exactly. There will be a part 2 to this. I can guarantee that.
Stay tuned for part 2. On that note, if you are watching this and this has helped you in some way, we'd love for you to help us get this out to more people. So engage with it in some way, whether that's on YouTube or a audio platform. Like it, share it, comment. Let us know what we're doing and if what we're doing is helping in any way, so that we can keep doing this. We can keep helping more people, because that's truly our mission. If you have questions or have a topic that you'd like us to talk about, you can get in touch with us. You just hit us up on an email. So it's emailtheperspective@gmail.com. And otherwise, just drop a comment and let's have a conversation about how we can make the world a better place.